Welcome to PAB 2012.
Talking about social media ROI today, but not the douchebaggy kind. There's nothing about return on investment here. So if you're all about the monetization, move on past, nothing for you guys here. What I am going to talk about, and I have to thank Mark for spilling the beans. If anybody's listened to the On the Road to PAB episode of the Canadian Pod Fading Buffet, we love each other, Bob, come on. So what the ROI I want to talk about is relationships over internet, which is why I've called it the non-douchebaggy kind. And see what I did there? A little head fake. So how does this fit with the theme of PAB this year about exactly? So the invitation said to riff on the theme of why PAB has always ended up being exactly what was supposed to happen. And for those of us who've been here before, it's always something that's been happening organically. Bob and Mark put together the stage. They arranged the framework, and the presentations happen, and it all occurs organically, which is it's been a wonderful experience, and I do think it's been exactly what it's always meant to be. I was born in the mid 1950s. Well before there was anything, being talked about globalization and so on. Yet I am the product of globalization. Stick with me. We'll get around to relationships over internet at some point. So as I said, I'm a product of globalization. A bit of this, a bit of that. From my father's side of the family, you might see a little bit of the Asian stuff here. Chinese descent. They ended up in Trinidad in the West Indies, which is, if you know your geography at all, is slightly a tropical climate. My mother's family is from originally of Scottish descent, with a little bit of English and Irish thrown into the mix. So, it's why I don't look 100% Chinese. She was born in Canada. My dad came to Canada to go to university and then enlisted in the armed forces. He was in the Air Force. He wanted to be a pilot. His eyesight wasn't good enough, so they made him be a navigator. Considering how bad my dad's sense of direction is, I really wonder about their judgment. Anyway, he got posted to Winnipeg, which where my mom was born, where I'm from as well. And so that's where I'm, this mix, globalization. And a lot of that sets the stage for what I want to talk about next, which is isolation. And I'm not looking for sympathy here. People have made progress. When you come from mixed parentage, Robin, you probably have seen this as well. You say your granddad's from Germany and so on. Particularly then, back then when you're growing up in the 60s, Ken, you're, wherever the dude's gone, there he is. Ken, you'll have seen some of this with your sons who are mixed parentage. Maybe less so than I experienced, but growing up then, there was a sense of isolation for me. I wasn't part of the Chinese community in Canada, which was in Toronto. I grew up in the Toronto area. It was centered in Chinatown in Toronto. We didn't live in that area. My experience of Chinese culture, because my father hadn't really grown up with Chinese culture much, living in Trinidad, where it's a British colony, and they have a large Chinese community there, but he never was part of that, really. I mean, he doesn't speak any Chinese. I speak no Chinese. So, there was the isolation on that side. I wasn't really part of the North American culture because it looked a little different. I was also kind of a fat kid, which, kind of also sets you aside. So I did feel isolated. Fortunately, I was. It offered challenges forming relationships, but on the other hand, I was the kind of personality that I was very self-absorbed. I was interested in things that a lot of other kids weren't interested in, science and technology, and reading and things that boys of that era didn't really do. Social media, my entry into social networking and social media was mainly through podcasting. My wife, Catherine, looked at me one day and said she was listening to a lot of podcasts, and she said, can you show me how to do that? Being the tech guy in the family. And it led to her becoming a podcaster, me becoming involved with the community. I've done bits on various people's podcasts, John, some of the other Sages, QN, things like that. Yeah, a lot of you have heard this story before, so please forgive me for telling you the game. But that is how I got into the social media community, and meeting all of the people who have come to PAB, gone to things like pod camps and so on, being interactive with them on Twitter and Facebook and so on. So podcasters across borders. Bob, Mark, sorry, I know you want to rebrand it to PAB, but podcasting has become less central to PAB. It's more about content, about the relationships and the creativity. But this is about brand power, and you still hear a lot of people talking about podcasters across borders. It's never going to go away, guys. As I said before, I'd grown up and feeling isolated. Again, not looking for sympathy. I'm sure there are a lot of people in this room who've come from a geeky kind of technical background who have had similar experiences where you probably felt isolated. Hands up? Oh, good, I'm not alone. And the relationships over internet really has changed my life. I've gone from having, friends that I could count on the thumbs of one hand sort of thing, to having lots of wonderful relationships. And I'm not talking just about, Facebook friends where, you friend people just because they share maybe one little teeny piece of interest, or you bumped into them one time at a conference and shared a card and they hunted you to death until you friended them. Does that happen? No. And I have formed some really wonderful friendships, and both or through the internet, and which have converted into real life friendships, in face to face. One of the things about coming to PAB, going to PodCamps, is getting to meet the people and to really be able to interact. It's just wonderful. What you get out of social media depends on what you put in. And for me, it's been getting involved in PodCamps. We really believe in the social media community, for all the reasons that people here talk about. It's great to communicate. It's a way to bring together communities, not just the social media community, but if you have a personal interest, you can use the tools to gather the like-minded people. Again, going back to the thought that the best relationships happen when you have something shared, something in common. Beyond being an organizer of PodCamp Toronto, I've jolted here before at PAB. I'm talking now. I am. I contributed to people's podcasts and generally schmoozed with the best of them. Okay, so maybe I'm not the best schmoozer, but somehow people seem to know me. And I guess that's the return on investment for paying it forward. People in the community know me, and they come to me when they're looking for some assistance or help. Bob and Mark needed somebody to fill in a slot here, and they said, let's let Mikey do it. The old cereal commercial. Mikey will eat it. Last things last. So the content at PAB has always been about stories, which have a beginning. That's where you learned about me. A middle. It's where I've shared what I've learned about relationship over internet and maximizing your return on investment, the non-douchebaggy kind. And eventually you get to an ending, where I fervently hope what you found about this presentation was it was exactly what it was supposed to be. So, and one more thing. Bob and Mark, kudos to both of you for such a great ride. PAB will always be on our hearts and minds. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.